So I'll start with the beginning, as like the previous 4 hours have never happened. Hello, Marjorie. Hello, everyone who's watching us live now or the recording later. My name is Anita Modestova. I'm a self-employed English teacher based in Moscow. Right now, I'm interested in teaching adults general and business English and professional development and career opportunities for freelance teachers. And I manage a community for Russian-speaking teachers of different languages, and we're broadcasting this interview to my group right now. So someone might ask questions too. So guys, get ready for that. Oh yeah, more people watching.
Okay.
So, I'm going to Yaroslavl this August, and Yaroslavl is known as the ELT capital of Russia. And I'm going to the summer school for English teachers, and the topic is new approaches to teaching general and business English. And the speaker is Marjorie Rosenberg. So hello again. And so I'll tell you a little bit about Marjorie. She's originally from the US, and she lives in Graz in Austria, and she currently works with corporate clients and trains teachers and writes ELT materials. So as far as I understand, her recent books are like Business Partner, and she has recently revised Communicative business English activities. Right. She also has held workshops and talks at more than 100 countries in the world, international conferences, and she's been a plenary speaker at 20 conferences around the globe. And Marjorie served as the chair of Teachers of English in Austria and as IATEFL Business English Special Interest Group Coordinator. And she held the posts of IATEFL VP and President as a member of the IATEFL Board of Trustees. So thank you very much for finding time for this interview twice today. And for people who don't know the story, we already had a kind of interview. But something went wrong and we couldn't record it. So I will be asking Marjorie some questions. I'll try the new ones, and to find out the answer to the previous ones, you'll have to come to Yaroslavl in summer and to ask Marjorie yourselves. I'd like to ask you about your career path, because most of the English teachers, like any teachers I know, and I have a special project where I collect stories from different teachers and post them online. And most of them have never planned to become an ELT specialist. And I know that you came to Austria to audition for the Austrian Opera House. And here you are now. So can you tell us what happened?
Right. Yes, I studied music in the US and also have a degree in teaching music. Taught for a couple of years, then moved to New York, ran a small opera company, worked in advertising, and heard of a program here that for opera singers. And I came over, auditioned a bit, didn't get a job, did concerts, tried to make some money as a singer, but I needed a day job and went back to teaching. And slowly that just took over, just became what I've been doing. So
and you decided to stay in Austria.
Yes, I really liked being here. It's a great place to live, and yeah, I took lots and lots of training courses, and then started getting involved in teacher associations. My first conference presentation, I think, was 1995, if I remember right, something like 94. It's a while ago, but I enjoy teaching. It's a lot like being on stage.
Yeah, it really is. Thank you. My second question would be about gender balance in ELT, because it's the 5th summer school in Yaroslavl now, and you are the first female speaker. So it seems to be a logical thing to ask, like, is it hard to make a career in ELT as a woman? What do you think of the gender balance? And I don't know, maybe it's more difficult for men actually, and maybe that's why they try harder, and are speakers everywhere. So,
well, this is a big issue in ELT. The gender balance is very important, and the FAIR list, which was started by Tessa Woodward about, I don't know, 8-9 years ago, looks at gender balance at events in the UK. When I was chair of the conference committee as president, we definitely looked at our plenary speakers and made sure that we had a balance. With 5, we always went for more women than men. And it is possible to achieve gender balance if you keep it in mind. IATEFL actually has had a very good record on this, and I think since the year 2000 there have been more women than men plenary speakers. The normal conference presentations are based on the submissions we get, or IATEFL gets, or any conference gets, and they are often more women because there's just more women in the field. So this is very important. There's a new group called EVE, which is Equal Voices in ELT, that looks at more aspects of this, including native, non-native speaker balance, so also men and women. And there's another category, I can't remember exactly which one they're looking at, but I mean, we're looking at things like where people come from and people of color versus just having people who are, you know, the standard people that we get at ELT conferences and so on. It's become a very big issue and is something that many conference organizers are taking very seriously today.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. If you want more information on that, you'll ask Marjorie personally because we kind of discussed that already. Thank you. This seems to be the right place to ask a little bit more about your volunteer work with the IATEFL. Your role as a president, and how did it feel?
Okay. Yeah, well, I started as chair of my local association in Austria, and then at one point thought, well, I'm very active in the IATEFL BESIG group, which is the business English group. They were the reason I joined IATEFL, and I joined the committee. And soon after that, a year after, the coordinator stepped down, and I thought, why not? I might as well do this. And I was coordinator for 5 years, which I really enjoyed. We had a great committee. I learned to delegate. I learned an enormous amount. And then I joined the membership committee of IATEFL, which is, sorry, an executive committee, and then thought I would run for president. And what I have to say is about volunteer work is that there is no better preparation as a business English teacher than working as a trustee or at a higher level in a teacher association. So I learned how to run meetings, how to organize meetings, how to deal with the minutes, how to set up the agendas. I would come into a class and students would tell me about what they were doing in their jobs. And I'd say, oh yeah, I know, I had that problem last week. And they say, wow, you really get what we're doing.
Wow, that's really important. Yeah.
It is. And we won the President's Award from TESOL when I was president, and I had to record a speech which was going to be shown in, I can't remember if it was Atlanta, I don't remember which city it was in, but you know, on the big screen at TESOL to whatever, 8,000 people. So we recorded it at IATEFL. We had the speech on an iPad, which then froze. And I was trying to indicate that they had to keep moving so that we wouldn't have to do it again and again. And it was definitely challenging. And then I went to a lesson shortly after with one of the members of the board at the bank that I teach at. And he told me he had to give a speech in, I think, Sarajevo, which he recorded. And I said, oh my God, these are so difficult. And he said, oh, you understand that? I said, absolutely. It is not simple. So doing these things, I mean, getting up at the stage at IATEFL and opening the conference, this is something that our business people have to do. And when you've done it, it's not like reading about it. You can say, oh, yes, well, I learned to do this, or I did it that way. It puts us on a different level.
Yeah, wow, it really does. And it sounds very inspiring. Thank you for sharing. I've already asked Marjorie about teaching business English a bit, so I'm not going to repeat that question again. But I know that some of my colleagues wanted to know, because we heard that you have like NLP certification, right? So you're trained as an NLP specialist. So what NLP techniques would you be sharing with us this summer in Yaroslavl? And like, could you just tell us more what can be used in English language teaching?
Well, in general, I mean, establishing rapport is number one.
Yeah.
I don't actually have it on the program, but of course I could add it. There are a number of things that can be done, especially in business English. One is the coaching things that we do. And this is to get people to set goals that are achievable. And this is something I have used in my classes, My students like it a lot. It is excellent for business English training. Establishing rapport is excellent. And one thing actually that I think we could do is the Disney strategy, which is looking at creativity in meetings and how to make these creative ideas work, how to put them into practice, how to look at them critically, and to work on them with a very special technique that comes from NLP. I don't want to give it all away, but it's a very good idea that we could do that then, yes.
Oh, would love to. Thank you. Yeah, because like NLP courses are like, they usually take a lot of time, and then I don't think, like, I know that maybe some techniques, yeah, if you could share with us, this would be great for many people who can't do the course at the time. I've already asked Marjorie about the business English and the difference between business English and general English, and anyway, there will be something about that at the summer school. The thing that Marjorie told me is that, like, I'm going to summarize it, that business English is, as far as I understand, it's more about teaching business skills actually and business culture than language, because language is basically the tool we use. Yeah, and so and to become like a good business English teacher, you need to be aware of different cultures, personal cultures and international cultures, and be able to help your student with the need he has at the moment. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah, yes, it's, as I said, it's more purposeful. There's a reason they need English to make deals, and establishing rapport is a major thing. So they need communication skills and business skills. They need to be able to give a presentation. They need to be able to run a meeting. Yeah. These are things that people in general English classes don't necessarily need.
And as you said, the stakes are so much higher. Yeah, with the mistakes and the
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one more thing for, no, two more. One more is about the summer school. So the first day of the summer school is going to be about the different learning styles, right? So you're a specialist on that. And I'm not a specialist at all. So, but what I've heard, like recently, there's been a lot of criticism on this, and could you share with us what you think about the styles and the criticism, and why you started with that?
Well, I started with it because I tried to learn French at school, and it was hopeless because they used only auditory approaches, and I'm not auditory, and it was absolutely a disaster. I hated every minute of the class. Discovered years later that the reason was the way it was taught and not the fact that it was a language, because I did learn German, and began to look into this. So I started doing more research on my own, worked with a colleague in the States who was very interested. I wrote my first book on learning styles, Spotlight on Learning Styles, then did another book called Creating Activities for Different Learner Types. And I ran 2 research projects at university, which were very interesting. The criticism we get is, for some reason, people think that what we say is that, okay, now I'm teaching only to visual learners. Okay, now I'm switching my lesson. I'm teaching only to auditory. We never, ever said this. What we need to do as teachers is be aware that we have all those types in the classroom, and to kind of look at ourselves. Because we teach the way we learn. So I have a colleague who is very auditory. He doesn't like to give out handouts till the class is completely over, because he wants them to concentrate on what he says. And the visual people want those notes so that they can take it in 2 ways. So when we deprive students of their primary access to something, this is not positive. It's not helping them. So there are 2 things that we're starting to look at. Number 1 is, if we don't acknowledge we have different types in the classroom, are we affecting their motivation? That is definitely one. And the second is, are we providing enough different materials so that everyone gets something out of it? And that's a very important point. And in the research project I had an activity, and I'll be explaining this in the course, where every single learner type liked it, but for a different reason. It wasn't even liking it. The question was, what helped you learn? And every single one said, I learned from this activity because. And each of the particular reasons was completely different. So this is what's fascinating. Now, the other thing that came up recently, I'm working with a group of psychologists. And when I was describing the different learner types, they said, oh yeah, we know that type. We get them all the time. So when we ignore the fact that there are certain behavioral aspects to learning styles, we are not doing our students a service at all. We're doing them a disservice. And they wind up going for counseling because they're feeling stuck. And that was fascinating. So I'll be covering that as well.
Yeah, thank you. So it's like because like a personal approach. Anyway, it helps make lessons more personalized on a level of like the way people perceive information.
That's one of it. I mean, we look at the visual, auditory, kinesthetic. We look at what we call cognitive, global, analytic. And then I have another model that is behavioral. And it was the behavioral that the psychologists immediately recognized those learners, like the ones we call expert investigators that need a long time to do something. They said, oh, they're the ones in our thesis management group because they never think it's good enough. They never are ready to hand it in. And they need to learn to go beyond that. Or they get the ones we call flexible friends who say, I can't study because I don't have enough friends supporting me. And that's very different behavior. And it's based on what they need in order to actually finish their university studies. So this is pretty important. It's not something minor. And when I do hear about it, saying there's no evidence, well, where are you looking for evidence? How are you looking for evidence? What happened to those kids that dropped out because the motivation wasn't there? You know, are you talking to psychologists? When you talk to psychologists or psychiatrists, they all say, absolutely, we learn differently. So I think there is a lot to be looked at here, and I wouldn't throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Okay.
We'll see what people in Yaroslav say after the first day. I think it's the first day of the course.
Yeah, it's written to the first day. Yeah, we will be really happy to discuss that. Thank you very much. Could you tell us a bit more about your plans for us in Yaroslav, actually?
Well, the first day is on the different learner styles and how to create activities for it. So just to get ideas, you know, what am I doing stuff that appeals to different groups or not? We'll be covering all of that. The second day is on cooperative learning, which sets up interdependent teams where everyone in the team has a role. So they can't just sit back and let the others do the work. And we'll be looking at fun ways to work with texts that also help students from pre-teaching to predicting, through structure, through vocabulary, a little bit of grammar, and then on to activating the language. It's a fun activity. And then I'm going to look at vocabulary and grammar activities, also through communicative learning and ways to get the concept across. Very often grammar in English is a concept thing. It's not learning the rules. It's what's the point of the rule? And it has to do with the concept. It's in any language. But until we get that concept, it doesn't make sense to us. And even if we memorize the rule, we can't use it. So we'll be looking at that. And the last day is business English activities, which I will be taking from the book on communicative business English activities. I had the idea for that. If you know the Jill Hadfield series, the communication games, it was came out. Yes. Someone who knows that.
Yeah, yes. I love, but I think it's like I couldn't like really find it anywhere because
it's been out of print for a long
because it's
time.
grammar games, communicative games, and vocabulary games. I think 3 books.
There were several, and I have them all. I love the stuff. They are so useful for practice. And when I started teaching business English, I thought, this is what my learners need. I mean, after a long day in the office, having a card game, something, no one falls asleep when they're manipulating cards. They might fall asleep reading a paper, you know, looking at text. But if they are matching things together, there's no way they can fall asleep in class. So I went back and
I mean, business students they can be sometimes so exhausted.
Exactly. But when they are busy doing something like that, or walking around the classroom, finding somebody who knows something, it's pretty hard to start snoring. So I felt it was important to create those activities to foster the group work, to foster cooperation, and just to activate the language. And even in the deciding how to do a task, they're already started to negotiate with each other, which is very interesting. You know,
Yeah.
I think we should put all the words here. No, let's do it this way. Fascinating to watch how they do this.
Wow.
So I think very, very valuable using this kind of material.
Yeah. So why are the books out of print then? I mean,
Jill, they're 25, 30 years old. I don't know. I could ask her, but I think she's been working on getting them back into print.
yeah.
My first business English activities book also went out of print.
Oh.
And now this new one is with Express Publishing, and it has the added advantage that there is a digital component that students can sign up for themselves and practice again at home.
Wow.
Which is something that no other photocopiable has. So I think it's something that it could be very helpful for business English students. So I'm looking forward to this class. It's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to working with the teachers. And coming back to Russia, I was there once, so I only saw Moscow.
Yeah, Moscow, Yaroslavl, like two best cities. No, I'm kidding. I started traveling, like educational tourism, and I visited like some cities in Russia, because I'm from Moscow and usually we don't travel much, you know.
Really?
I mean, around the country, yeah, we usually travel to somewhere to Europe. And thanks like to being a teacher, I started discovering Russia in a new way, and it's amazing. So I think you should next time you could try other cities. I think Dmitry Nikitin can help with that. Yeah, he's a great tour guide. Thank you very much for doing this again, for the interview. And I know I'm really inspired. Like the first time when it didn't work out, but anyway, I was so frustrated and emotional. So I called a friend and told her, like, wow, I got so excited about the summer school. Anyway, yeah. So I already have my tickets, but anyway, if I didn't have one, I would definitely come to listen to your talk. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you in Yaroslavl.
And as I said it the first time, I didn't get to say this time, the only singing I've done recently has been at the music evenings at IATEFL, where I have the very esteemed accompanist on the guitar, Jeremy Harmer, which is always fun. We enjoy that. So yeah.
This is great. Yes.
Yeah, it's so many musicians.
Oh, we have a guitarist where I mean some of the teachers play the guitar. There will be a guitar in Yaroslav, might be. So
okay, well, if they bring them along, we might be able to do some singing.
Yeah, we're there for a week, so
okay, it might be fun.
Might be fun. Yeah. All right, so I think it's time to have dinner or something.
Yeah, I have to start cooking as well.
Because it took us 4 hours instead of 1. Thank you very much for doing this again. Looking forward to meeting you.
Great. Looking forward to meeting you too, Anita. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.